All right, wonderful. So let's begin. Welcome everyone on today's demo. It's 11th in a row, and today we're going to discuss our recent Android and iOS releases, which we done past 2 weeks. Later, we will discuss our main topic for today's demo, which will be showcasing of all Kusama Treasury proposal features, which we promised and which we delivered recently. And after that, we're going to discuss roadmap and upcoming changes to it. So let's begin. While we're waiting others to join, let's also wrap up what we have in terms of like social media stuff. You can always find the links to download the app on our website. Also, feel free to join our Telegram channels, follow us on Twitter, subscribe us on YouTube, and join Element and Medium channels. So let's go through the recent releases. For last 2 weeks, we had 3 major releases for Android, and you can see that the changelog is kind of huge for this. But the main features, I would say that were the DApps management. So you can see that we added the favorite features for the DApps. So now you can mark and unmark the DApps on your catalog or even in your DApp browser if you would like to mark a favorite a certain DApp. Also, you can review the recent authorized DApps. So if you ever provided the access to your accounts on certain DApp, then you would be able to manage it later on. So you would be able to revoke this access, or you can see the list of such DApps. As well as we also provided some nice improvements for the assets. Like we are now providing the history support for every asset in the ecosystem. It can be utility asset, which is main asset for some network, or even like the inner asset inside of the network, like Rework, for example. We also delivered feature on ramping tokens. So now we can purchase the tokens using the node wallet and our partners Transact and Ramp. And there are several other improvements which you can find on the slide. And similar features been also delivered on the iOS. So the DApp favorites, authorized DApps, on ramp, and operation history for all the assets. As well as it was to mention that we also support the phishing protection in DApp Browser. So if a user will try to visit the certain DApp which marked as is malicious, then the no word will warn the user and basically will not allow user to do any operation on this DApp. So that was the review for recent releases on Android and iOS. By the way, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We will review them later on. And now we can talk about our main agenda, which is the Kusama Treasury proposal deliveries. So in December last year, we have submitted our proposal to Kusama Treasury to implement following features. We wanted to implement the DApp browser into the mobile format so that users can have access to all the DApps available in the ecosystem. We also wanted to expand our list of supported assets by introducing state mine and state min tokens integration, right? And we also wanted to integrate the NFTs, which are kind of popular in the ecosystem. So we were focusing on the Unix palette and Remark version 1 protocol. And the last point in our proposal was dedicated for staking and overall user interface rework and applying some improvements to it. So that was our proposal submitted on December. And finally, we are ready to deliver the report. And this demo would be a part of this report. So we will showcase every feature which we promised and something even more on this demo. By the way, all these features, by the time we record this demo, are available on both App Store and Google Play, so you can download the app and see them by yourself. You can also visit our original proposal. The link is provided here in the slides, which will be shared afterwards, as well as the recording. So you feel free to check what we promised by that time. But let's go back to the presentation. To sum up, let me also rearrange the windows a bit. Yeah, like that. So to sum up what we have promised specifically on the slides. So we can categorize them by these four, let's say, columns, right? In terms of the DApps, we promise that we will implement the Polkadot.js extension protocol, which basically allow you to connect to all the web application and DApps which are supporting this protocol and which mainly used by the extensions in the Polkadot ecosystem, like Polkadot.js extension, Talisman extension, Subword extension, and others, right? The second point here was dedicated to have a UI widget for viewing and signing the operations, because whenever the app trying to communicate with mobile app, we need to represent this communication info in like a convenient way for our users so that they can understand what's going on. The third one was to provide an option for user to explore the whole web using the Nova browser, because they might be interested in certain DApp that they know, and they know the URL for that DApp. So they will just enter this URL in the like a browser from Nova, and they will be redirected to this DApp, or even try to search it in the search engines like DuckDuckGo. The fourth point was basically to collect all the DApps in the ecosystem, aggregate them in the open source repository on the GitHub, and connect no wallet to this repository, right? Which means that we are now supporting all of these DApps which are available in the ecosystem and maintaining this list of the DApps in our application and in the GitHub repository so that anyone can contribute, anyone can use this list. And the fifth and sixth points, we basically discussed them just like a couple of slides ago. Those are basically favorite DApps and the recent DApps. As for the assets, our idea was to implement support for something like assets palette in the substrate, which means that we would be able to fetch the balances and the transfer the tokens which dedicated to this asset palette in the networks, right? Good example for that would be the StateMine network, which using assets palette to represent variety of tokens in the network, like Remark token, for example. The second point here is kind of similar to what we do with the DApps, but it's more about the whitelisting. So the StateMine has variety of the assets. Part of them are for the test purposes, and part of them are the real use case tokens, like a Remark, for example. So our idea is to provide this whitelist procedure so that our users will have an option to see and manage the whitelisted tokens, which once again can be operated in open source format, so anyone can make and submit the pull request to our repo, and this token would appear in no wallet. That was a case for Polaris DAO and their Iris token. Now the NFTs. NFTs are also pretty straightforward. Our goal was to provide an opportunity for the user to see their NFTs, which comes from the Unix palette and which comes from the Remark NFT protocol, right? And as for the last one, UI Rework, we basically focused on redoing the all user interface screens in the mobile application in no wallet, just to apply the improvements for the user experience. So that goes for the assets management, that goes for the staking, that goes for the account management. Right, so that was the proposed scope of work. Let's see how we did. So by that time, by today, we successfully delivered all promised features and even more. So you can see that on this slide, there are some features marked in the blue color, right? And we're going to briefly cover what they mean. So let's start with the DApps, right? When we started to implement the DApp support for such ecosystem like a Polkadot, we faced an interesting situation, right? So many DApps in the Polkadot are basically have a connection to another ecosystem, which is Ethereum, right? Which means that if you support as an extension or as a mobile app with a DApp browser, if you support only Polkadot.js extension protocol, then you're cutting off the user from those features which relies to the Ethereum part of the DApp, right? So we immediately understood that we have to research, we have to design, and we have to implement the support for MetaMask protocol so that all features in the Polkadot ecosystem, which includes this Ethereum part, and some networks even relies on Ethereum part, like Moonbeam, like Astar, right? So in order to provide the complete access for the users, we have to implement the MetaMask protocol in the DApp browser, right? The phishing protection for DApps, that goes for the security aspect, because we already have the phishing protection in our transfer flow. So our users are warned when they're trying to transfer their tokens to the accounts which were noticed for malicious activities or scamming activities. The same goes for the DApps. We have integrated the community operated list of both Polkadot and ecosystem addresses, and also the Polkadot and ecosystem DApps, which were noticed in the phishing activities. So now the DApp browser warns user that this is a phishing DApp. As for the assets, and you can see that that's twice as more we have promised it in terms of the amount of the features, but let's discuss why it happened, right? So the first one in this list is to implement support of something called ORML palette, and the same features like balance fetch and the transfer. So ORML palette is another standard in the ecosystem how you manage multi-asset aspect in your network, right? And if you take closely to the ecosystem, you will notice that you basically see that assets palette and the ORML palette are kind of 50-50 choice between the ecosystem teams, right? So ORML palette is something that Akala and Karura teams are using, Kintsugi and Interlay teams are using, and that's just something what we cannot miss in terms of the integrating to the node world, because once again, in this case, we are limiting users to access to their tokens, right? So that was the top priority of additional features for the assets in our list. The second thing is that once we started to integrate all these additional assets to the app, and we will see it on the demo and on the screenshots, right? We noticed that basically our previous representation model, how we just singly represent every asset on the screen, is just not going to work, because you have multiple chains and you have multiple assets inside of each of the network, right? So you need to some sort of categorization for the user so that it will be convenient for them to see the balances, to manage their assets, and so on. And we're going to see later on how we did this. In this area goes hide zero balances feature, because right now we support more than 40 networks of the Polkadot ecosystem, that all of the Kusama parachains, all of the Polkadot parachains, and each of this network may have some additional assets like Karura, Moonriver, and others, like more than 10 assets in this network. So that's a lot of tokens displayed on the network. So we wanted to provide opportunity for user to just save some space on the screen. On-ramp tokens was already implemented by our team before we submitted our proposal, and we were just in the process of passing the KYB process with our partners, namely Transact and Ramp Network. So it was just kind of feature toggle for us to enable it. And the last point here is that once we integrated so many networks with so many tokens inside of each of the network, we had to provide our support for the operation history for all these assets and all these networks, because we are using subquery to provide the information about operations account for the user, right? And the same goes for the subquery projects. We have to provide additional integration for assets palette and for the ORML palettes, right? So that we can saturate this the operation histories for all of these tokens. So that was also done and executed during the proposal. And the small remark for basically remark NFTs. Since we submitted the proposal, it's been like 3 or 4 months, right? And Remark itself has evolved by that time, introducing new API, and we are planning to add support of that in the next proposal, grant on collaboration with their team, right? Okay, so that's about the scope and the completed scope. Once again, I remind you that you can already download the application on the App Store and Google Play and see those features by yourself. But now what we're going to do, we're going to one by one for each section review every this feature I will try to be fast, so feel free to ask any question. And in the end of each kind of feature review, we will allocate some time if there are some questions asked by either community or counselor members. All right, so yeah, showcase time. Browser and DApp features. So let me switch to my Android emulator. And if you would like to see any feature on iOS, just let me know in the chat. I have my iOS device also plugged in, so we can switch between them. So let's take a look on the DApps. First one is the integration and compatibility with Polkadot.js extension. That basically means that, so if you go to the DApps tab, and if you will try to connect to any of these DApps which are using Polkadot.js extension protocol, like Astar, it means that we are able to do any of the operations now in these DApps, right? So we are able to open them. We are able to connect our accounts from the Node wallet to the DApp, right? And we would be able to see all the related information in this DApp for that account. So you can see that even Astar DApp is recognizing our connection as Polkadot.js extension, right? Because it's the same protocol that we implemented on our side. And you can see that all the features are available for us here. And that goes for all the DApps basically listed here, or if they're not listed here, you can access them using the search feature. So we can go to something like SubSocial. We can see that our account is connected there on the top right, and then we can execute any of operations. So for example, make a like for this post. That is the transaction to the blockchain. And we are now looking to the second point to review, UI widget for viewing and signing operations. So we can see that the SubSocial DApp is asking us to confirm the certain operation, which is in this case, just tap a like, right, for this post. And the advanced users can also see the transaction details, which basically allow them to review the extrinsic details like the module reaction, function create post reaction, name upload. So that is available to them as well in this UI widget. But for the simplicity, you have all this information like what wallet, what your account, what network fee for this operation. And once we tap confirm, we can see that the app is showing kind of in progress status. And once that's done, yes, that's submitted directly to the blockchain using the SubSocial DApp. Next one is the possibility for users to connect to any DApp using just any URL. So for example, we can enter the URL here. So let's type something like remark, or sorry, singular. And you can see that what is happening here, we also kind of providing you suggestions for the DApps which exist in the DApp catalog, right? So you can also select them from here. But if you just want to search it, you press here. And then the Nova browser will open the DuckDuckGo if you entered not the URL, not the completed URL, but just a word. And from here, you can just navigate to the DApp itself. So let's add some more information so that search engine will understand us. And here we go. The similar process which we have seen with the SubSocial DApp, because that's basically the same protocol. So we would like to allow Singular to understand our accounts so that we can see them on their DApp. And then we can utilize any feature in this format. The interesting story that we already have a case in which the community member of Singular is using only iPad, which is iOS device, right? And they are using only Nova Wallet to operate with Singular. So they don't have a PC or they don't have a desktop. And that's the case for us in which Nova Wallet kind of shines and provide the unlimitless possibilities, right? Because that's the only option for this artist to do the operations in the Singular using the Nova Wallet right now. So yeah, that's interesting case. The next one is display a list of available DApps and maintain such list on the GitHub. So what I'm talking about here is basically this DApp catalog, right? You can see that we maintain all the ecosystem DApps here. And we also provide some categories, right? So like NFTs, DeFi, crowd loans, staking, community, our users can switch between them, right? And moreover, our users and the community members can suggest or add the pull request to this list. So for that, they just need to go to the No Wallet, No Utils, open the DApps folder, and here we have the list of supported DApps, and the all information is basically forged in the JSON. So you can see that we store the categories here, and we store the information about DApps themselves, like a name, URL, icon, and the category. So anyone can open the pull request to our GitHub repo, and that will be displayed immediately in No Wallet. The next one is favorite DApps. That was provided recently. So that's a nice UX feature for our users. They can basically mark any DApp as their favorite. So for example, Moonriver, I can mark it and it will be available on the top. That will be also displayed on our suggestions during the search. And in addition to this, we can do something interesting. We can go to any of the DApp basically from the web and mark it right from the Nova browser, right? That will suggest the default naming, the address, and we can save it to our favorites. And you can see that this appeared. And we can unfavorite so that it will remove it completely from this list. The recent DApps. Recent DApps is something which we came up with the name after Rise DApps, right? So you can review and see what DApps you provided access to your accounts, and you can revoke this access at any time. So you can see that right now the access is provided to Subsocial. So whenever I visit Subsocial, Subsocial already knows me, and we already established kind of handshake with Subsocial DApp, so that there is no need to provide them access to our account addresses once more. But if I will revoke this access, that means that we are no longer friends with Subsocial DApp, and we need to establish this connection one more time once we visit their DApp, right? Yep, we now see Subsocial here one more time. And for the additional features, just a small remark. I promised you that all the features we see here are basically available on Google Play and App Store. But for the EVM DApps, this is completed in terms of the development, and we expect it to be available like early next week for the Google Play. But I already have a working version of it, so why don't we just see how it works by ourselves? So Moonbeam DApp is the one which works only with MetaMask protocol. So you cannot connect to the Moonbeam DApp or Moonriver DApp using only Polkadot extension, right? And we even see that we have logged in with MetaMask. And let's try to do something, because Moonbeam DApp is already recognized us. That's nice. And let's try to execute some feature here. For example, claiming our crowd loan rewards, which is very popular use case between our users. By the way, you can also stake your tokens here and do many things. So let's try to do the claiming. The UX is pretty much the same, right? So as soon as we tap on any action on this DApp, either EVM based or Polkadot just extension based, it's the same. So we need to confirm any operation which DApp suggests to us, right? And in this case, we would like to basically do the crowd loan claiming. Crowd loan rewards claiming, sorry. So let's do that and see how it works. The same thing that we saw in Subsocial DApp, basically, we are doing, we are waiting for this operation to be done. We already see that amount is kind of updated, but let's wait for some more information on the Moonbeam DApp page. Transaction confirmed, and it means that everything is committed to the blockchain. So we have successfully claimed our rewards in the Moonbeam DApp from the Nova wallet, which is great. And as for the phishing protection, that's kind of the last point in our list. For that, I will need to quickly search for the right repository. Give me a second for this. So we are using the commonly shared, the open source repository, which is Polkadot.js phishing. And here we can find the file named all.json. and that contains all malicious website, right? So let's grab some of that website and just see if it works or not. Sorry, I need some time. Let's first test it on our desktop. So the website itself works, and once we try to visit it, my Polkadot extension, which is installed in my browser, is doing the same thing which I'm going to show you in Nowhere. So it says that phishing detected, and it not allows us to proceed further, right? So let's try the same thing in Nova. So for that, we will go here. We will type the same URL for this DApp. And the same experience, basically, phishing detected. We even can see that something is basically, so how this website working, but we cannot do anything on this DApp. So we can just either close the application or tap the button, take me back, and that will, that will move us from this DApp. So that's it for all the DApp features in our Kusama proposal and some additional features. I don't see any questions in the chat, so let's go further because we have 3 more features to review. Assets features. So once again, our goal was to extend available assets for users to manage in the mobile format in no wallet, right? So let's start with implementing support for the assets palette. So we can review that and make sure that it works if we can see the multiple assets in such networks like Moonriver. So Moonriver is using assets palette to support these cross-chain assets like cross-chain Kusama, cross-chain Remark, and others that you can see on the screen. As well as StateMine, for example, is using the same assets palette. That's why you are able to go here to the Remark token and basically send the Remark token on the StateMine network. So that's available just because we integrated the assets palette and plugged it to our networks which support that. You can also see that we display the history for the Remark token in StateMine, and that falls to any token which no wallet supports. The second part here is more about how we do this integration, right? Because we could just integrate all the assets available from the network, but that would make the overflow for the user. So instead, we support the same thing, kind of what we do with dApps. We support the networks which are integrated to no wallet, right? So you can go here, for example, chains.json, and in this file, we basically represent the configuration parameters for our networks which we support, right? And if we will go here to something like StateMine, we will see that we have the assets array and how basically you need to, what you need to provide to this JSON so that the asset will be whitelisted. All right. So anyone can do this pull request to us, and basically, yeah, we will enable this asset in the app after some testing and basically verification. And yeah, we have lots of additional features for assets. Let's talk about them. So implement support of ORML palette is kind of the same thing that we did for the assets, but it's completely different in terms of the technical perspective. So we can verify this feature in no wallet when we go to some network like Karura. So just because we implemented this support of ORML palette, we are able to see the balances and operate with the tokens in addition to the car token, which is main token of the Karura, right? Once again, we can see the Remark token. We can send the Remark token on Karura network now, right? And that goes for all these tokens which are available in Kusama, in Karura. The same goes to something even more fascinating, like without the ORML palette support, we couldn't even achieve the Kintsugi network integration because that network completely relies to this ORML palette, right? Even the main token, which is Kintsugi Kint, right, is configured using ORML palette. So in order to support the Kintsugi network, we had to do the ORML palette integration. That's why basically we decided to squeeze that in the timeline for our Kusama Treasury proposal. So now you can see that in Kintsugi you have Kint, Kusama, KBTC, and the same goes to the interlay here. So multiple assets supported, as well as the main asset of the interlay, inter. New design for assets tab, network as categories. So for that to compare, we can find our old version right here, the second screen. You can see that every asset was the different, let's say, widget on the screen, right? And when we tried to add more assets, like state-mine assets, like Remark, for example, we noticed that it was not very organized on the screen. That's when we came to the idea to categorize all the tokens by the networks in which they are allocated. So now you can see that we have, for example, interlay as a category, right? And all interlay assets are inside of the interlay category, right? That also allows us to decouple the namings for the network and the main asset, because those are not always related in terms of the branding, like a name, icon, right? So that's in general allowed us to have more convenient display of user assets. Hide zero balances feature. So you can see that we support tons of the assets and tons of the networks. So it's nice to see all of them, but sometimes users just need to be focused on certain assets which they hold. So that's why we provide the option to hide assets with zero balances. For that account, it's not really works because it holds lots of tokens from different assets. Let's switch to something like that one. So that account holds only dot token, right? So the user can be potentially interested only seeing the dot token, and that can be done just by tapping this action, right? So they don't need to manually disable all these tokens or some of the networks, right? They can just quickly switch this toggle, and it will be much more convenient for them to manage their assets, right? On-ramp tokens. So on-ramp tokens is something which is related to basically buying the tokens, and you can proceed here in the details of assets which our partners support to be on-ramped. We are providing some options, like for the dot token, you can do this using either ramp or the transact, right? And basically, then you navigate it with to our partners page, and no wallet makes sure that you will have the right address. So that's your address to which tokens will be navigated. And also, the no wallet makes sure that the token inside of this kind of widgets selected always for that token which you basically came from. So in this case, it's a Polkadot token. So yeah. Right now we support the on-ramping dot, Kusama, Mover, and Glimmer. And our partners are telling us that more tokens to be supported is coming. And the last one, which we already kind of presented, but we have a lot of subquery projects. Hold on, let me show it as well, like how it looks like from subquery perspective. So if we will go to the subquery website, and by the way, the code for our subquery indexer subquery API is in open source, so you are free to reuse it and fork it and modify. And as for the amount of these subquery projects, you can see that once again, since we support like 40 something networks, we need a data source for each of these networks, and even more because some networks we kind of in a validation phase, right? So you can see that that's a lot of subquery projects which we have successfully deployed and working on with, right? And in terms of the application, you can see that you have a nice operation history in the wallet. You can see the details of this operation. Here you can find the information about like a account, and in the places in which you have this eye icon, you can always tap on it and get some information like full representation of the address, for example. You can copy it, you can view in Subscan, Polkascan, and any supported explorer. Once again, this list of support explorers can be added on the fly. We can just add to our JSON on the GitHub, so that's not an issue for us. And basically, yeah, you can see all the operations, including staking rewards, transfers, and so on. Let me switch to this account to demo that. Yeah, we can see that lots of staking rewards on Kusama because they have like 4+ rewards per day. And you can manage this using the filters, for example, right? So if you don't want to see the staking rewards, you can just disable them in the filters. And yeah, you can review something like transfers. All right, I think that was everything for the assets in terms of like what we promised and what we additionally delivered, right? So let me switch to the chat to see if there are any questions. Yes, security audit, let me address it indeed in the end, right? Let's talk to other explorers supported by the Treasury to add to that list as well. So we carefully monitoring the situation. So for example, we know that there is something called state scan, which is block explorer for state mine and state mint networks. So if we will navigate to any operation history for state mine and state mint, we can see, yeah, we can see the state scan as an option here, right? So yeah, any explorer can be added. What else we have here? We also have the sub ID, which is not really an explorer, but it is something useful which can be applied to the user's address so that you can kind of see kind of the same picture that you already see in a no wallet, but yeah, on a sub ID DApp. So like a balances, crowd loans, and other information about certain account. All right. So I think that's all questions in the chat so far. So let's go further. Yeah, just a quick reminder for our recent achievement. We are very proud to provide a mobile application which supports all of the Kusama and Polkadot parachains and even more, like some ecosystem networks like Edgeware, which sum up to the 40+ networks supported in no wallet. That's, I think, the only one application right now who provides support to this many networks, and in addition to all the assets inside of these networks, which is important. All right, so NFTs. NFTs are pretty straightforward in terms of this Kusama Treasury proposal, right? Deliverables. So first one is to implement support of unique palettes. So view NFTs from state mine or other networks which are using unique palette. So that would be the networks like, yeah, as I mentioned, state mine, right? They are basically using unique palette. Let me see if I can find any of those. Those is from Kusama. And that one is Kusama as well. So those which are on the Kusama, they are basically Remark version 1, which you have as a second point. And for the others, I think that I will be failed to find here. So you have to take my word for that. Right? But whenever you will see the state mine as a network, you basically looking to the NFT which is coming from the unique palette. All right, so let me check the chat. Yeah, I indeed love this picture with the networks. I love it very much. Yeah, so let's go further. UI rework and improvements, better experience than before. So once again, our idea was to redo the user interface, right? In the many aspects that you can find the description in our Kusama Treasury proposal. But the main point now is that user interface for most of the parts, like the assets tab, staking, account management, all of these screens, and it's about like 70 screens of them, 30 of which is dedicated to staking, right? But all of them are now improved and revisited so that we have applied like both internal feedback and the feedback which we receive from the community. The issue with this direction, I would say, or not an issue, but some worst point to be discussed, let's say, right? So you can never complete this. You can never stop when you do user interface rework and improvements, because community continues to provide new ideas, indeed great ideas how you can improve the user interface. So that's why we provided specific list for our features in terms of improvements for the user interface in our proposal. And in terms of that list, you can find all these dedicated screens and the features we have completed, right? But still, we already collected lots of the feedback, and we have community members on the call who provided us a tons of it. So what we're planning to do, we will most likely provide a part of these features which we received as a feedback to the next Kusama Treasury proposal and see how it will go. But for the list which we originally promised to deliver as an outcome of our Kusama Treasury proposal, that was completely done. It's really hard to show in the demo because that's basically, you can see all the screens which have been updated. So instead, I would just show you the slides with kind of side-by-side comparison for certain features. For example, the send flow was optimized, and instead of like two screens in which on one screen you have to enter the address and the second for the amount, you can now have only one screen for the sending tokens in which you can enter both variables, right? And in the future, you can see it on the behind, we are planning to reuse this concept as well for the cross-chain transfers, right? Yeah, so you can also see the nice idea that we would like to be very transparent for the user, especially when it will be a context for the cross-chain transfers. We would like to be very transparent with the user what's going on. But in this case, the user is sending Kusama on Kusama network, KSM token on Kusama network. And on another case, the user is trying to breach the BNC token from Bifrost to Karura network, or there is an option to select other network. So that's kind of the idea which we discussed with Talisman team. In their application, everything is kind of fulfilled with this idea, right? So we decided to also implement something similar to this in the Node wallet. The transaction details, operation history, you can see on the slides that we just provided more user-friendly representation, like in terms of the user interface element and like how we form the data on the screen. And the same goes for the staking, right? For the staking my page, it's kind of interesting because the less steps for the user to achieve certain action, the better, right? That's why we moved kind of the staking management operations from that your stake widget, and now they're available directly from the main screen, right? And with that change, we also moved other features, like you can see that unstaking requests are now displayed on the main page as well, and kind of attracting more attention to it, because in the Kusama and Polkadot, whenever you try to unstake your tokens, you need to first wait for unstaking period, and then you need to redeem these tokens, right? So that's why we would like to provide the vision for the user that, hey, you have some tokens that you can redeem right on the main page. So yeah, that was one of the idea and one of the advantage of such improvement. And also some nice changes, like to the controller account, it has now more information about what that feature is, why a user care of using this, and so on. Right, so that's all about our final deliverable of the Kusama Treasury proposal, which is UI rework. And let me check the chat. Yes, so that's a good comment. So similar to how we wrapping and finishing the EVM part of DApp Browser on Android, which will be provided early next week, the same goes for the basically iOS design improvements for staking. So on iOS, you can see that all of the screens have been revisited in terms of like assets management, in terms of like the crowd loans, the settings, the account management. But for the staking, it's still kind of in a testing phase, and some features we're still polishing. So yeah, you can expect like the next week to have the update on iOS in App Store with all the UI features delivered. All right. I can see that that's all for the questions. We actually very good with the timing. So let me switch to our final slide for the roadmap. And what's next? So with our Kusama Treasury proposal is being completed, and we are now entering the phase in which we will prepare a more formal report, let's say, to the community and the counselors, right? We will attach this recording and these slides to this report, of course, but we also need to provide more detailed information about what we have done during this proposal. And next, we are going to think and we're going to collect the feature requests for the next Kusama Treasury proposal. There are tons of ideas like integrating the governance, integrating the cold wallets, improving the interface once again, like introducing the crowd loan part to the total balance, improving the NFTs because Remark team is not sleeping. They continue to improve their protocol. So yeah, there are lots of potential features which we would like to implement. So we will prepare and submit the new proposal and we will see how it goes. Yeah, that's why expect our roadmap to be refined. That means that it will not be completely changed, but instead we will just provide more details to the roadmap, right? So you will have more information about what to expect in upcoming months. Also, on our table right now is completing our grant with the Moonbeam team. That was a part for EVM DApp Browser on Android. So EVM DApp Browser on iOS was kind of done without any funding, either from Moonbeam side or Kusama Treasury side. So we just made it as a part of our research and proof of concept. So that's why we talked with the Moonbeam team, and the EVM DApp Browser is for Android is a part of this grant, as well as the Mover and Glimmer staking and XCM features which relates to the Moonbeam network. Some cross-chain transfers, we're going to implement them as a part of the contract with the Moonbeam. And of course, we continue to talk with many teams in the ecosystem to explore other features from their networks to be implemented right in Node Wallet. So like something from DeFi or NFTs, we are very open to suggestions. We very carefully listen to the community. So yeah, feel free to express your ideas and suggestions. All right, that's it from my side. And let's see what we have in the chat. Yes, governance. Yeah, we are also excited about the governance and for the cold wallets as well as the cross-chain transfers. So everything what is coming, our team is very excited and motivated to build. Oh yes, the audits. So I have seen the idea of making the bounty on Kusama network, but our position that we would like to have a security audit that may be not funded by Kusama Treasury and from the Kusama bounty. Maybe we will receive any donation from the VC investors or any other stakeholders who love Node Wallet, or yeah, even do some fundraising round to just cover these expenses and other expenses related to sort of like marketing, community management, but we are still exploring this. The bottom line for it is that the security audit is something that we are looking for right now. That's not as critical as passing the security audit as a blockchain protocol, right? Because we basically a user interface which using the common best practices, but still we have to do the security audit just to provide more confidence for our user base, let's say. But the question was going that, are you planning to add this as a milestone for an upcoming proposal? I think it would be a good idea to have an audit bounty for applications in the ecosystem, and it is something that it's being working on. This would be ideal, and if not, what are your team plans to? Yeah, basically, as I mentioned, we are still kind of exploring the options. I have been contacted with some folks to help me understand like in what state the audit companies, and it's pretty much the classic. Everyone is busy for the conducting the security audit. But yeah, I think it was to at least mention in our upcoming proposal on the discussion phase. and we will see what would be the result for the bounty for the security audits for applications in the ecosystem. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. I think we're good on timing. In this case, I suggest that we will wrap up here. And thank you everyone who participated. It was a pleasure to execute this Kusama Treasury proposal, and see you in next 2 weeks. Have a good one. Bye.